Ja, moin.
Right, hello everybody.
Bis die Kopfhörer aufgesetzt werden.
We'll wait for some headphones till everybody wears one. Hi Sabina. Hello everybody. Welcome to my presentation.
Was Eisbären mit
I will talk about polar bears and self-management. I guess some of you might wonder what's behind that title.
Natürlich steckt ein Impulsvortrag.
Of course, this is a keynote from my last festival where we talked about polar bears. But still, I would also like to share some private ideas so that you understand why I'm talking about this topic. Well, I tried to summarize it in a statement. I would say 35 years being a child of psychologists and with 7 years of experience as a consultant, they meet. So my mother, she's a trained psychologist and a single mother. And I think all of you can remember that puberty, how reflective you were. So maybe it might occur that you come home and I was complaining to my mother and I said, everybody is so unfair towards me, and my mother just said with a lot of love, Adrian, how do you think do others feel with that? So I was very angry about this back then, but that's something that had a huge impact on me. And I think with consulting, well, it's a job where you have to have these reflections on a daily basis, where you meet new people and where you speak in front of hundreds of people, so you need a certain affinity, and this is how it came about in my case. So as I said, we talk about polar bears, so let me show you a polar bear. Well, usually I do this in a training session, but please bear with me. Have a look at this polar bear. What adjectives do come to your mind? How would you describe this polar bear?
Das haben wir ja vorhin gelernt, die Macht der Pause.
So, the power of the break. I did this. So for me, the polar bear is large, is big, is strong, is wise, white, has 4 legs, and it's dangerous. And I think more adjectives might come to your mind. Maybe one of them was inside your mind. So let's have a second polar bear. Maybe let's do the same thing again. How would you describe this polar bear?
Ich habe das auch gemacht und
well, I did this, and I would say, well, it is tired because it's quite human to reflect human emotions to on an animal. It's more white or yellow. It has 4 legs, although you can't see it quite well in the picture, and it's kind of cute. And I think I have a third polar bear, so I won't give you the 5 seconds to think about. This one is small, weak, it's white, has 4 legs again, and there is no discussion. It's very cute. So you might wonder, what can you deduct from this regarding polar bears? One thing is very important for me. Perception, in my eyes, is very subjective. So everybody has their own adjectives in their mind, and they are always different depending on the situation, because these polar bears, they can be all the same ones and still have a different description for everybody. So I wouldn't know if the second polar bear were with me, if I would still think that it is a cute animal. So polar bears are very different. They live not in a group, so they are very dependent on the environment. Something that's very interesting, and they have to balance on ice flows. And that's the thesis of my topic. An isolated perception on a job is not enough. So that's my keynote. You can go home. No, we'll do more. Thanks. Thank you.
So, aber weil ich ja 20 Minuten fülle,
so, as I have to fill 20 minutes, I will just continue. For that, I would like to have a look into the industry when we talk about self-management or staff. So one thing that's very interesting, it's not very scientific, but a very subjective view. I think a few talks concerned this, where we talked about old types of leaderships. Back in the day, you would say, well, yes, I have a job, I also have a private life, and there were like management rules where the private life is none of our concern. Private and work things, they must be divided very strictly. But if you look at more modern concepts, you see a traditional work-life balance module. You see this scale. On the one hand, you have work, on the other hand, life. And let's try to have an even distribution of both. And of course, there might be different interpretations of that. So I brought 2 familiar faces, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. They do not compete in terms of who lands first on the moon, but they're also very successful people. Here's a quote that I cannot read on my small screen, but Elon Musk, he says something like, when one person works for 50 hours and the other 100, then they will achieve twice as much. And so you get a feeling on how he thinks about working time, so it's very work-focused. Then we have Jeff Bezos, a very successful and famous person, and he said something else. He said he firmly believes that if he is a good dad, this will have a very good impact on his job as CEO. And if he is a good CEO, this will also have a good impact on his job as a family father. He said something like, it's actually not a balance, it's a circle. And I must say, I can identify with that. Looking back at the last 2 years, we were sitting at home due to COVID. We had our boss, our colleagues, we saw them in their private clothes, we saw them in their private surroundings. And with more new work approaches, with new methods, you see overlaps between work and private life. And I'm also an engineer, and we also need models to explain the world to us. So I was thinking, if we talk about private life, work life, I understand what my work life is, but the private life is just too one-dimensional, monodimensional. So, of course, we need polar bears again. What are my 4 flows that carry me? So, first, job. Job is a large amount, a large part of my life, friends, family, maybe 1 or 2 are in the audience and can't see it quite well, and partnerships or relationships. And you often tend to forget them. You have to take care of yourself as well, because you're also the person who has to balance that all out. And my 4 flows are don't have to be the flows of others. So that's why this is one of the clouds from my trainings. So having a look at these 4 flows can be very different. I can't tell if you can read it. Some say salary is also part of the private life, so this is very exciting in this regard. But these are my flows, and here you can differentiate. It's very important to have private life and to have a differentiated view on that. So images are always nice, and I really enjoy to Google these pictures, but let's simplify that. I personally think like this. You are a polar bear, and I have my 4 flows: family, job, friends, and relationships, or partner. And you have the job, front left, which will be important in a minute. And someone explained to me while I was working from home how to have a remote presentation and how to show this to people without drawing pictures. So how can I implement this or make this module tangible with everyday products? Here's what I used. This is a book. This is our polar bear. 4 poles, which are just normal shot glasses. And then we also need some burden, because we also want to put some burden on this model. So we have a bottle of schnapps. This is a daily life stress, because when you have had a rough night with alcohol, then it's rough to work. Money as a financial burden, and you also as a trophy, which is like a pressure to be successful. But this is what it represents. Of course, we also want to talk about them in the context of certain situations. So let's start with the optimal polar bear situation. You see, it's very energetic. It's on all 4 paws. So if you implement this on the module, family, friends, relationships, job, everything works well. And if you have a look at the module, you have a book, and it's on the shot glasses. So now we have to reconsider. All these burdens should be placed here. Who of you thinks that the module will break down? Right. I don't see any hands, so that's a good sign. So in this situation where everything works well, I can deal with a lot of burden without collapsing. But life is not always very optimal, so I have a second situation here. This polar bear is stretching out a bit. So one flow is maybe collapsing. Maybe you still can be happy in these situations. You see it's very energetic, but you can still see that the polar bear is a bit in the air, floating in the air. You see his legs are a bit stretched.
Also wenn ich es jetzt übertrage,
So when I
und man sieht,
apply this to our model, you see bottom front left, you see the book is stabilized well, and there's one glass missing. So if I put work pressure on that, so who thinks that the book will collapse?
okay, hört
Right.
auch zu, das ist gut. Genau, also ich glaube, das ist so eine
So
Situation.
I think that's one of the situations where both can happen. It depends on where you place it. But for the effect, of course, here it collapses.
sagen möchte, ist,
So what I want to say here is, if I go to the front left, look at the job, you could say, well, in terms of job, Adrian is quite well. Nothing should happen, but still, the polar bear would go swimming. And to exaggerate this, I brought a third situation with me. So a part of the picture is missing, but you see the polar bear is standing up straight. You might say Adrian is well, but still there's a separation. You had some issues with friends, so the flows are not carrying me. And if I have my book placed again, this is what it looks like. So top left, front left, the job. Who thinks that if I place a trophy on it, it will collapse? Okay, I see more hands. Well, this is what's happening.
wie gesagt, immer darauf achten, vorne links.
So you see, front left, that's the job. Everything is well. So an isolated perception of the job could have led to misunderstandings or to false interpretations. So what can we take home from this? So I talk about polar bear because I like to Google polar bear images. But we talk about humans, and humans are always very difficult. So we all have the tendency to be very subjective perceptions of things, assessment of things, both in the private life and in the job life. So if I'm stressed on a day, I can have a different perception on things. It sounds very trivial, but it's very important to bear this in mind on a daily basis. So what do I want to say with that? In my view, a significant independence between the private life and a working life is existing. So an isolated perception on the job life is not enough. Coming back to my title, well, that's why polar bears are strongly connected to self-management and leadership. So I talked about modules a lot. And I was wondering, how can we summarize this in a picture? So coming back to Jeff Bezos. So how do I imagine this with myself? So I am the polar bear in the middle. I have my work-life circle or cycle, and my relationship with my friends, family, my job, or my partners, well, they are closely connected with each other. So when my job is going well, this will have an impact on my partners, on my relationship. Maybe last Wednesday I was annoyed by some meetings, and then my girlfriend felt that. And I think it's the same with all the other aspects. So this is what I want to say. You do not have one situation, one flow. This has changed throughout the years. So this is how you can imagine having a look at COVID situation. There was family, friends, jobs, but I think friends were significant. And I think the circle changes throughout time, and it's always good to have a look how everything works or interacts with each other.
Damit möchte ich mich einfach nur bei euch bedanken.
So all I can say left is thank you for the attention. Have a wonderful MHP festival. Take care, and take care of your team, your family. Thank you.